Hello, my name is Renee Castro, and welcome to Building Video Games with Python, Lesson 3. In previous lessons, we became familiar with the game library, how to create variables to represent our game, our images, how to use functionalities of an object, specifically the game and the image object. In this lesson, we're going to dive a little deeper into this practice of listening to what we're saying and then searching for an appropriate programming solution from the game library. And hopefully through that, we'll learn how to resize images. So let's get to it. So this is where we're at. This is the code we wrote from lesson 2. And let's just simply run it. So we'll see that we were able to import the game library, create a variable to represent our game, which is our screen, in addition to other functionality. We created a variable for our image, we told the computer to draw the image, and then we finally told the computer to update the image. But let's take a little closer look at the image itself, the original one, the one we have stored in our folder. So I'm going to navigate to where we're storing all our files. Let's go ahead and preview this background picture. Oops. What you're going to see is that what's being drawn to our game is not the whole picture. And the reason for that is that this picture is actually an actual very large picture. So the game's only drawing that portion of the picture that fits within the window, the game window. So I guess what we're looking to try to do is to maybe resize the original picture so that it fits inside of our game. Alright, so let's look at our program and let's see if we can figure out a solution for that. One thing to notice, I do it quite often. It's a natural thing. You want to close out the game. You're trying to close it out from here. Right now we haven't added functionality to our game to close it out from the X. So to actually close out the window, you have to close out the Python shell, not the program we're writing. That can stay open. But the shell has to be closed out. So I'm going to close this out and you'll see it closes both of them out. So I'm going to open up the game library and let's reiterate the question we're trying to figure out, or the solution we're looking for. So we want to figure out a way to resize this image to the same size as our game. So the first thing we have to do is we have to be able to navigate to the appropriate object. And because BK is an image, it makes sense that the solution to our problem is somewhere in the image class. So let's scroll down. Alright, so we finally made it down to the image object. So we're looking for some way to resize the image to the same dimensions as the game. So let's kind of scroll through this and see if there's any function that kind of hints at being able to resize something to a particular dimension. So let's scroll through, moving. We'll deal with this in about 2 lessons from now. Change X, change Y speed. You will never deal with those. Forward, rotate by, move to, move towards, rotate to, angle to. So far nothing really gives us the indication of being able to resize the picture. So scrolling. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, we got that. So resize to. And it accepts a width and a height. Sounds like exactly what we want to do. So let's go back to our game. And if you recall, if we want to do something with this particular image, we have to reference it by its variable. So we're going to say bk dot resize to, and what size do we want? Well, we want the same size as our game. So we're going to put 800, 600. Let's save it. Let's run it. And you might say, doesn't look much better. Actually, it looks exactly the same. The reason for that is that the computer only follows our instructions in the order that we provide them. So we've told the computer to create an image variable, draw the image in its original size, and then resize it to the same size as the game screen. So it would make more sense for us to resize the image first and then tell it to draw it. So let's see how just a change in order of instructions affects our game. Much better. So now the background image is the exact same width and height as our game screen. The whole background fits. Cool. Alright, so at this point we want to introduce another object to our game. Let's introduce the zombie. So the first thing we have to do is we have to actually grab the picture of the zombie. So I'm going to go here. Oops. Close that too much. I'll open it up later on. So here is the link to where all the resources are for this Zombie Thanksgiving. So I'm going to copy this, go back to the browser, paste it. It's going to open up a Google Drive where I've stored all the images as well as the pictures for this particular game. So let's download the zombie. Let's go to where the zombie downloaded, and in my case it downloads to the download folder. Again, on your computer it might go somewhere else. Let's go ahead and copy this picture. Let's put the picture in the same folder as the rest of our Python files. It's important for you to remember that if you download a picture and leave it in downloads, or you leave it in pictures, or you leave it in documents, the game's not going to be able to open the picture. The picture must be located in the same spot as the rest of your Python files. Alright, so now that we've downloaded the picture, we've put it into the folder, now we're ready to get back to the code. And I'm going to open up lesson 2. And let's create another variable to represent our zombie. So we close this out. Let me bring this over here. Alright, so an appropriate name for a variable to represent our zombie would be zombie. So zombie is going to be an image, and the name of the file is zombie dot. Now if you notice, zombie is not a JPEG. Don't go autopilot. It's a PNG. So you have to make sure that not only do you get the right file name, but the right file extension. The last thing to recall is that when you create an image object, you have to also include the game variable. This is how the program knows to associate the image with the game screen. And finally, let's go ahead and draw it. Alright, cool. So we still got our background picture, but now we got this huge zombie in front of us. So we have to figure out some way of shrinking it. Now you might be tempted to use a resize too. The challenge here though is that you would have to figure out the proper proportions to shrink the zombie down to an acceptable size. So you have to do a little math there. But it might be easier for us to simply resize the zombie by a certain percentage. So let's shrink it by 0.5%. Or if it was a small picture, let's grow it by 50%. So let's look at our game library and let's see if we can find something that gives us an indication of being able to resize something by a certain amount. So let me fix this up again. Let's open up the game library. So as before, because we're looking to figure out a way to resize this image by a certain amount, the solution has to reside in the image object. So I'm going to use page down this time. That way we get there a little quicker. Alright, so we're in the image object, and now we're looking for something that kind of indicates that we're going to be able to resize our image by a certain amount. Scrolling. Okay, so we're back to the resize 2. We kind of figured out that might not be appropriate because then we're going to have to figure out exactly the dimensions to resize it to. But there is a resize by that's right afterwards, which allows us to specify a percentage. So let's do that. So we're going to say zombie dot resize by. Now the way the resize by works is that if it's a negative number, it means you want to shrink it. If it's a positive number, you want to grow it. Now from experience, I already know that shrinking it down by 80% is going to give us a better zombie, one that's not going to fill up the whole screen. So let's try that. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to run it. Uh-oh. It's still the same size. But wait a minute. We put resize by. Anybody? Alright. So we ran into the same issue as before, is that a computer's dumb. It's going to do everything we tell it to do in the exact same order we tell it to do it. So we told the program to draw the zombie and then resize it by. So we want to resize it first. So we're going to cut this, give ourselves a little space here. I'm going to save it, run it. Much better. So now we've added a background picture. We've resized the background picture to the same size as the game screen. We added a zombie. We resized the zombie by a certain percentage, so it's an acceptable size for the game. We told the computer to draw it, and then we finally updated the game. And that concludes lesson 3. Let's go ahead and do a recap of what we practiced. So we practiced this notion of listen to what we're saying and then search in the game library for an appropriate solution, which led us to figuring out 2 different ways that we could resize images. We could resize images to an exact dimension using the resize to function, or we could resize an image by a certain percentage using the resize by function. Alright, so things are going to start picking up here in future lessons. We're actually going to start moving things around. So hopefully you've mastered these skills, because in future lessons we're simply just going to throw it onto the screen. Alright, thank you for watching.